welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and an update on some of my painting projects from the last few weeks, or last couple of weeks probably. So it doesn't really happen to me very often, but I lost a bit of my mojo. Not for painting or wargaming or anything like that. It was just that I was planning to paint up more of my Normans in Sicily project, and I wasn't really feeling it. Really wasn't feeling it, and the weather has been so bad. I'd spent a lot of time updating or preparing, assembling, basing, getting ready to go. So many figures, and sprayed them and undercoated them when I had the opportunity, but I realised that pretty much everything I'd done was Norman, and so I didn't really want to do any more Normans for a bit, so I wanted to do something different. So it kind of derailed me a bit. I had to sort of then wait for the weather to improve to be able to spray some more and blah blah blah, get the undercoats done. But I delved back into the good thing, I guess, out of that was I delved back into the lead and plastic mounting, and pulled out these fellas. I knew I had them. Hadn't had them that long actually. I think they came October time or something last year. These are North Star miniatures. These are 1812 American regulars. They did a really good deal for about a weekend, I think it was, selling off 1812 armies basically for muskets and tomahawks. And I just thought, that's something a bit different. I'll get that. I haven't got any Americans. It came with lots of military types and provincials and those sort of things, which I thought, they're useful to have in my addled, purchase-frenzied mind. But they also had this group of 8 regulars with their officer, and I really like them. It's just different. I do like, I've said this before on the channel, I do like North Star miniatures. They're quite chunky and quite fun to paint as a result of that. Now, the only thing I kind of adapted on these was, if you look on the North Star Miniatures website, they painted their regulars with white, I guess, overalls. And I just didn't really fancy doing all white again. So, all white. So I did the more traditional blue uniform, because they're my figures and I wanted them to look like that. Quite pleased with how they've come out. Gave them a bit of a dry brush afterwards, which has given them a little bit of a dirty look, but I don't mind that too much. So all cool. They're finished, 8 figures plus the leader, and I have learnt my lesson and primed a number of their compatriots, the military types, ready for if I fancy doing something different. Although I have got back onto doing some of the Normans again. So more figures from the stash. These are some Kickstarters, I think I got these. They are AVI miniatures. American or French Indian War figures, I believe these are. These are Highlanders. I think they were supposed to be Highland Light Infantry. So I've sort of painted them up, or tried to, as the 71st. They're an odd, they're an odd figure. They are really chunky. I mean, seriously chunky. I quite like some chunky figures, but these are particularly chunky. I don't know whether they'll ever see the table or not as a result of that, but they were kind of fun to paint. Gave me another opportunity to try out doing some tartan. Not sure I like the tartan on these ones as much as I did on the previous tartan painters I did, mainly because these have got a lot of ruffles and ruches in them, which makes them really hard to continue the pattern, but they'll do. A 3-foot rule applies. A couple of standard bearers. I think, if I remember right, it was a weird pack. I bought, there were 6 infantry and then a command pack of 3. Was it 4? It must have been 4. Yeah, 4. So command pack had the 2 standard bearers, the officer, and the musician, the bagpipe player. And I think I'm going to use it, if I do use this unit, use it as a line infantry. So therefore I've, or a formed body, which is usually 8 figures in muskets and tomahawks and sharps practice. So I've formed them up and then got the extra 2 figures. I do need to get some standards for these. I don't know whether I'll bother buying really nice ones from G&B or whether I'll just download them off the internet and try and size them right. Probably do that route, because as I say, I'm not entirely sure whether I'll use these figures or whether they'll just actually find their way onto eBay. They're nice enough, as I say. They've come out well, and I've used the... thanks to Culloden Painting, by the way. He reminded me where I had seen the brown wash that I talked about in the last video. This stuff. It's called Ali's Brown Liquid. I'll put a link in the description, but it's a website. It's a blog that somebody talked about their own homemade wash, which is particularly good for troops with red coats. And I've started to use it, and I have to say it's been a godsend. It makes the red coat job so much easier. Don't know why. It must be just that composition of different washes that he put in, but I used it on these. I've used it on the last regiment of Napoleonic British infantry I did, and also on the Marines and things from the last video. And I love the effect. I think it really works well. Anyway, hold up. These are done and dusted, apart from the standards, but I'm going to say they're finished, so there you go. And so my continuing quest to paint lots of French Napoleonic regiments without painting any French at all continues with this one. This is yet another Confederacy of the Rhine regiment. This is another one of Napoleon's Germanic allies. This is a Hesse regiment. Let me get this name right because I'll butcher it. It is the Gross und Erbprinz regiment, which saw extensive action in the Peninsular War as part of the campaign there. Picked this one because Hesse I kind of like the idea of. As I say, because they played quite a big role in Peninsular War, and I tend to do a lot of shot practice and black powder games set in that period. I thought it'd be a fun one to do. This regiment kind of was, when I say, highly respected by both sides actually. The French and the Spanish appreciated how hard working these Hessian troops were and how effective they were as a formation. They were in France in Spain for so long that they lost their Hessian units, and the uniforms in the end were dressed in French uniforms because there was nothing else. But they still managed to keep their sort of national identity and fought really, really hard, particularly around the stage of the war in Andalusia, the Battle of Orcana, which they played a very, very big part of the game, the battle. However, they were never really appreciated quite to the same as the degree they should be. In the French army, often they got the shittiest jobs, like escorting prisoners and that sort of thing. But they were renowned for being phenomenal fighters. This regiment was extensively involved in the siege of Badgerhof in 1812 and largely destroyed as a regiment in that fighting. I'll read you an account of their involvement. This is from one of the Osprey books. When the fortress fell after bitter fighting on the night of the 6th to the 7th of April 1812, British and Portuguese officers were given as 73 officers and 963 other ranks killed. 333 officers and 3,500 wounded, and one officer and 62 missing. Exact casualties amongst the defenders were never established, but it was well known that the original 4,500 of all ranks, some 2,500 were taken prisoner on the 7th of April After the town walls had been breached and the surviving defenders were falling back on the castle, the attack was concentrated on the last bastion, which was held by the Hessians. Seeing that the situation had become critical, Oberhubler, commanding the Gross Prince, sent two under-adjutants to the governor to report the serious developments. When they eventually found the general, he was in the act of leaving the castle together with his staff and several mule loads of effects to flee across the river to the safety of Fort Cristobal. The castle fell about 24 hours later. Typical French, abandoning their Germans. Jeez. During their subsequent captivity, so the rest of the regiment was eventually captured and actually was taken to Britain. And imprisoned effectively for the rest of the war, and that was the end of their role in the conflict. I just kind of liked the history, kind of like the fact that these were such underappreciated by the French, but fought pretty darn hard for them all the same. These guys are a little bit battle damaged. You may have noticed these two at the back have lost the tops of their guns. Thanks to my daughter Imogen, who flicked her coat as she was getting ready to go out for a walk and knocked them off the top of the table where they were sitting, waiting to be filmed, and they broke off. And boy, can I find them? No, I can't find them. So I'm going to have to find some new musket tops to put on the top and glue them down. But hey, they've been seeing action. These boys, they've seen action. There you go. That's that regiment completed. It'll make a nice. Slightly different kind of formation for the battlefield. So next up, this is a unit of 24 Black Brunswickers, the Brunswick Regiment. This is the first regiment from the 1815 campaign. I'm missing these flags, just in case you hadn't noticed. I'm waiting for them to arrive from GMB, but delivery time seems to be very slow at the moment. So background on this regiment, or the Brunswickers generally, I mean, it's one of the things I've mentioned frequently I really love about the Napoleonic period is all those slightly obscure, weird regiments and nations and things like that. Just gives that, gets me excited, the whole variety of these. These are frontline figures, by the way. Really impressed with them. Metal, just really like them. I think that they paint. It's been a while since I painted up any front rank figures before, but these were well worth doing, so I was really pleased with them. Anyway, little history on the Black Brunswickers, as they were known. They were regiments formed by the Duke of Brunswick. Basically, in 1809, when Napoleon was forming the Confederation of the Rhine, he stole Brunswick-Lüneburg, which was the Duke's territory, duchy, and they formed that into the new kingdom of Westphalia. Now, understandably, Duke of Brunswick wasn't terribly happy about that, especially because he wasn't the king of Westphalia. So he sided with the Austrians, basically. So he formed a free corps, basically, of 2 battalions, a Jaeger battalion, some sharpshooters, and then some hussars and uhlans, lancers. And he fought with the Austrians, and he fought for quite successfully. But unfortunately, the Austrians were defeated at Wagram in 1809, and there was a peace signed in July of that year. But he refused to accept the peace, and he continued basically trying to oppose pretty much the entire Europe against him. He did briefly take control of the city of Brunswick, but eventually Westphalian forces made him have to abandon the city. But he made an amazing retreat. He held off. He basically managed to escape across Germany with 2 armies following him, despite a couple of battles, which he actually acquitted himself extremely well, and then was finally evacuated by the Royal Navy back to Britain. And the sort of whole mystique and excitement of the Black Brunswickers was fostered at that point. They became the darlings of the British society. Mainly because, of course, at the time, King of England, of Great Britain at the time, had possessions in Hanover, or had possessions in Hanover, and Hanover and Brunswick were actually pretty close together, so there was a certain kinship around them. But I think also the black uniforms was sort of got people's attention, and they fought as, I guess you'd say, mercenaries for the British Army for several years. They fought some regiments saw particular action in Peninsular Campaign. And they acquitted themselves extremely well. Although, as the wars went on, obviously, a lot of the original troops raised in 1809 were no longer going to be with us. Either injuries, illness, death, just desertions, just generally bodies being worn out. Meant logically there weren't as many of them, and they, by all accounts, they sort of replaced a lot of the ranks with not quite such high quality troops, even down to deserters and prisoners from the French armies that the Britain had loads of. So their sort of reputation sort of diminished as the campaigns went on, but they did see considerable action ultimately in the Waterloo campaign, the 100 Days War, and acquitted themselves pretty well at Quatre Bras particularly. A number of battalions were deployed there, and despite their fairly dubious quality, they did acquit themselves very well indeed. And obviously when Wellington finally went on to win at Waterloo, they were there too to celebrate that victory, and were part of the victorious Allied army. So a real sort of, I was going to say colourful army, but they're not really, they're black, so they're not that colourful. But I really like them, and I've done these as the first regiment. I've already got another Brunswick battalion. The first regiment had red lapels, whereas I think I can't remember what the one I've got already. I think it's got yellow, but whatever. I just thought they're really sweet, so I'm really happy with how these have come out. As I say, front rank figures are pretty good. Really pleased with them. So obviously the Brunswickers need some artillery support, so this is another front rank 28mm figure set. This is the Brunswick gun crew. It's a 6-pounder captured French one, which I've repainted in a sort of British colours, which were blue for the gun carriages and everything, but it's basically a French gun, because I reckon that the British wouldn't have equipped. They would have had lots of French equipment kicking around from the peninsula, and they would have equipped any sort of spare regiments and guns with any equipment that they could foster off. So that's my theory on this, that they would have had French. Some of them would have had French guns as well as some British guns, but you can put in the comments down below if you think that's right or wrong. I quite liked it. So I based them individually this time. In some of the others I've had quite big bases, and primarily that's because I'll probably use these for sharp practice, and having loose figures is good, although in sharp practice you need 5-man crews, so I'm going to have to get another figure just to make up the extra gun crew man. But really pleased with how these came out. They look really sweet, happy, and they'll make a really good addition to the Brunswickers on my table. I'm almost inclined next time we play some sharp practice Napoleonics of just fielding a Brunswick corps. That'd be fun. I've got some Lancers somewhere, so I think I might have to do them up. I do like a Lancer. So there you go. That's what I've been up to. Been playing quite a few Zoom games, so it's cut down on my painting. Plus I've been pretty busy at work, which is very inconsiderate. But still a goodly number of figures painted up. Some of the backstash is been worked through, and very happy with the additional formations. So hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I hope you're staying safe, I hope you're staying well, and I hope you manage to get some kind of gaming, even if it's just the painting and preparing and planning for the day when we're unleashed. So stay safe, stay well. This is Dom, signing out.